You guys make this sound like a real show.
Well,
it sounds
thank
great.
you very much.
And again, this is your idol.
My guru,
yeah.
The keyboard, Jimmy McGriff, ladies and gentlemen.
Sure. All right, we're going to bring out our next guest. She can be seen each week as a young Da on ABC's Equal Justice. I'm sorry, young DA. No, young DA, District Attorney. I'm sorry.
Attorney.
Yeah. On ABC's Equal Justice. Her latest film is L.A. Story. See, I could have done it again. Yeah. Featured in La Story.
That's restraint. That is really restraint.
Thank you very much. Anyway, she co-stars with Steve Martin. Here she is, folks, Sarah Jessica Parker. Come on out, Sarah. Thank you very much for being here.
This is my pleasure.
Good, good. I'm glad you're here. How old a person are you? You're very young, aren't you?
I'm 25.
Oh, now let's talk a little bit about your career when you were a kid, when you were like 11 years old. Tell the people what you were doing.
I was that girl with no pupils and a red wig. I was Annie.
You were one of the Annies, weren't you?
Yeah.
Were you? Now, you weren't the original Annie.
No, I was the third.
You were the third Annie.
I was just third best.
No,
Had to wait
that's
around.
not true. No, I mean, the original Annies grew old, and so they had to keep bringing in younger Annies, right? Yeah. Oh, they did? And how long were you the Annie?
I was an orphan for a year, then I matriculated to Annie for a year.
Well, was that good for an 11-year-old kid?
I suppose, I mean, in retrospect, it was, I think it was great fun, but it was also a little warped. I mean...
In what sense?
Well, I think that sort of life that you lead while you're doing it is sort of not based in any reality. You know, you eat at Gallagher's for dinner, and you, you know, you get paid, like, cash. Like you're talking about earlier.
Really? You get paid in cash?
I got this money that, you know, my only experience with someone handing me money had been babysitting, so for me this was extrauded, you know?
They paid you off in cash every week?
Well, no, but, you know, I immediately, you know, endorsed it.
Sure, absolutely. But an 11-year-old girl is in what grade? What is that grade? That's fourth grade? Fifth grade?
Fifth grade, maybe.
And did you go to school, or did they take you out of school, or what'd you do?
No, I think I was in denial about the whole educational process at that point. I went to school sometimes. I had tutors, actually, when I was playing Annie.
Right. And did you have classmates or friends who probably hated you because you're Annie? I mean...
Maybe they just hated me.
Yeah.
No.
Forget the Annie thing. It had nothing to do with that.
Yeah. They just, I was sort of odd. I don't think I ever really fit in.
Yeah, but it's good.
Not because I was better or anything, probably because they were superior.
But it really is amazing circumstances to foist onto an 11-year-old kid, but you had a good time.
It is. I had a wonderful time, and people were really nice to me, and I think that's why I liked it mostly.
And now, still as a very young woman, you're in this major motion picture with Steve Martin, L.A. Story.
Yeah.
And it's very funny, I understand.
Well, I think so, but of course I have no objectivity, but I think it's brilliant, and everyone should rush out and see it.
Yeah. How did you get this job?
I auditioned and I growled and I auditioned and then I had to meet with Steve and...
What was that like?
It was pretty petrifying.
Then did he know you were a former Annie?
I don't think so. Well, I'm glad he didn't.
Yeah. What was the audition like? What was the meeting like? What was
Well, actually it was Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
And I had to go and I had to read with him, and I met him in an office, and you know, I was just a civilian, really, meeting Steve Martin, you know, and I'd grown up watching him, and so, but he didn't have an arrow, so I was, you know, sort of disappointed. But anyway, he was very nice, and I just read with him, and he sort of said, that was lovely.
Were you, now we were talking earlier about Kim Basinger being naked on the set. Was any of that going on in this movie?
We were, yeah, we found ourselves constantly nude. It was really weird.
That's what I love about show people.
I kept saying, this is so weird because I'm nude again.
Let's take a look at a clip of this film. I am dying to go see this movie. When does this thing open up?
I'll buy you a ticket.
Good.
It opens right now, tonight.
Tonight, Friday. Okay. Here it is. This is L.A. Story. And you know what we're going to look at? Just you and Steve, huh?
Just...
Yow. Yow. Well, you look great.
Thank you. Thanks.
You look great in the film. And are you? Oh, and you're in the thing, Equal Justice. What is that?
Nothing.
Is that on?
I play an assistant district attorney.
Yeah.
It's on.
Yeah. And is that fun? You enjoying this?
Yeah, it's a sort of the polar opposite of this, but it's fun and it's challenging.
Good for you. Good for you.
Thank you
Nice
very
to see you.
much.
Come back anytime. It was a pleasure having you here.
Thanks.
It's Sarah Parker. We'll be right back. Okay, I'd like to put you in the will. Thanks for being here. We got to go. Have a good weekend. Good night, everybody.
Our first guest is an Emmy Award-winning actress, a very good friend of ours. Do me a favor now, please welcome the lovely, the delightful Sarah Jessica Parker. Here she comes. So nice to see you. What do you want? Oh, no.
Thank you. I was planning on not crying.
Well, you're not going to cry, for heaven's sake.
I'll just tuck it in my sleeve.
Tuck it right in your sleeve. How the heck
no,
are you?
I just want to. I want to take a
long,
right
ahead.
Hard look at you.
Well, that's the man, Your Honor.
I realized actually on my way out, I was like, okay, I want to do for all Americans what they will not be able to do because I am here in their place. Mm-hmm. For all the men and women who could not be here in person and look at you.
As surrogate.
And exactly. Mm-hmm. And stare at you and perhaps tell you about yourself, what you've meant to us. And I want you to take it like a man. I want you to sit here because I know your instinct. I know your instinct is you don't want to hear it.
That's right.
You don't want to hear anything nice. You don't want to tell. No. You don't want to hear what you've meant to us.
I want to hear about you.
But I have no interest in me. But also I figured that I have nothing to lose because you can't not ask me back again. You can't say.
That's right. That's right. So, well, we'll never have Sarah Jessica Parker. No.
And I really, actually, I don't want to make you uncomfortable, but I feel like this is my last hope.
This is very sweet of you, by the way.
But it's true. I'm actually, if these people weren't here and I, for some strange reason, was alone in a room with you, which hasn't happened yet, I would say the same thing. You've made us all so happy. You've been thoughtful and funny and challenging and terrifying, and despite your best efforts, probably the most distinguished man on late night.
God. Oh my God!
And those knuckleheads. They're so. I mean, it really is the end of an era.
Well, they're delightful. They're so delightful, and I will miss them dearly. And I will miss you dearly. But who knows? Perhaps we'll run into one another at an event.
Really? Things will somehow change?
No, it seems unlikely. Well, Sarah, thank you. That's very, very sweet.
But I really mean it.
Well, it means a lot to me coming from you. Others have said, rather clumsily, the same sort of thing. And it doesn't mean anything coming from them. But from you, it does mean something.
I've been rather public about my affection for you. It's got me nowhere.
Where did you want it to get you?
Well, you know, it's a very good question, Your Honor. I have no further questions. No, my lawyer has advised me not to. That's what I meant to say. Now, but can I just tell you one last little thing? Because unless we start following each other on Instagram, many years ago, before I was spoken for legally, I had a dream that you and I went to a basketball game together, and it was in a small town, maybe Indiana, and we were sitting on bleachers together, and it must have been I don't know, what's the intermission in basketball? Is it like a
halftime?
Halftime. And
oh, you mean what's the length of the intermission?
There's like a break at some point, and where you get water or refuel or something, and you turned to me, and you said with I think you really meant every word. You said, "I love you," and I said, "Oh my God, I love you too," and then you dipped me. Is anyone here old enough to know what being dipped is? Oh, thank God. It was so fantastic, and it was so chaste.
I've done some dipping in my life.
Oh, I'm sure you have.
Oh,
but it was very chaste. It was like very...
very adolescent.
It was juvenile.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's really, I think it's basically the sum total of our relationship.
Well, now, having said this, and it's such a lovely thing to have conjured in a dream, I feel a bit euphoric.
Do you mean knowing that you've played such a part in someone's unconscious?
Just to be included in that scenario, I find delightful.
I can't, I'm probably one of millions.
No.
At least 7 or 8. Well, so now we won't have any...
Take that, Maddie.
So now we won't have an object, an unreachable object.
That's very sweet. It's because, well, I won't say what I was going to say, but it's...
Now's the time.
It's nice to be reminded of those feelings, because as life unfolds, one doesn't know if they will ever fall on us again.
Oh, dear God. Well, you're right, and they're very specific and unique. They're not general, what I just... that story I just shared. So you're right, and I'm awfully pleased that it's my experience.
Now let me ask you a question.
Yes.
It's none of my business. Is this a recurring dream with different guys?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But it's a fair question. What if you... How horrible. What if you see me on another talk show in like 7 months' time, and I'm like, Jimmy, it's the craziest thing. I had this dream about you, and we were at a basketball. No, it's unique and singular to you only.
It's very touching.
As is much.
Very, very touching.
Well, right.
Now, your husband, I hate to...
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Was here not so long ago, a charming man, a lovely man, quite an actor, a real fixture in the culture of Broadway and America.
Yes, he is. And in our home.
Yes. We were talking about, because for the last 2 years, I have been thinking that I absolutely was going to have the reproduction talk with my son. And he said, he went through the same thing. And he was saying that he had been sort of straightforward about it.
Is that right?
And no nonsense about it, and let's just get to it.
It's interesting that he recalls it that way. So what my experience has been, vis-a-vis that conversation, is that I am the only one home when it comes up.
Really?
So that I am, from the time James Wookie was 2 years old, he asked me at 2 years old. Now, I misunderstood what he said, but I did tell him where babies came from, because I thought that's what he asked. And then when Matthew came home and I told him, he said, well, what did you say? And at that time, which I don't encourage, this is not my counsel to you, because your son is much older, but at that time I told him that he had one seed. And there was a young woman named Mary who we would meet in sophomore year of college. And that she was going to be very smart and lovely, came from a nice family, and that he would choose Mary to give his seed to. But he had only one. So anyway, so that was the conversation I had when he was 2.
When he was 2?
When he was 2, which I think that's not such a bad... if you want to talk about principle and honor and choosing wisely.
What was the question he was actually asking?
So he had a little cloth that he called his baby, and he would hold it up to his face, and he said to me, Mama, where does my baby come from? Where do babies come from? Where do babies come from? I said, oh my God, where do babies come from? I'm not prepared. I thought I had a good 10, 12 years. where the baby's coming from. I said, I thought about what I would like for him, which is that he have one seed, and that he should choose wisely. So we have had this conversation in a more real way.
Now, at what age, how old was James Wilkie when you had the conversation?
Well, James Wilkie came home one day, and he had been told everything from our neighbor in the backyard. In our neighborhood, it's like the 1940s. Kids climb over walls and they hang out. They're like the dead-end kids.
Yeah.
And our neighbor, he has an older brother, and they told him everything. So I was disappointed and relieved simultaneously. And then I just went over it. I wanted to be clear, because you know how kids are.
Yeah.
You know, they get some facts messed up.
That's right.
And you don't want to get that one messed up. And so I went over it, and he's pretty clear. And then last night, actually, we had another conversation about it, because my daughters told James Wilkie, who they call brother, that they said they saw brother's penis in the shower. They said penis balls in the shower. Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, you're never coming back.
We said, that'll be it. And that's the way you remember me. So now I'm talking with my 5-year-old, soon-to-be 6-year-olds, about that as well. But I find the conversation fairly comfortable. And if you need me, maybe that's the way we can stay in touch.
Well, here... Yes, absolutely. But I'm such a jerk because I made it because I didn't have this conversation with anybody. It was my buddies.
Right.
And my parents said, oh, one day, and it never happened. So I said, by God, I'm going to have this conversation. And it always starts out with farm animals.
What?
Well, you know, like,
because that's how they mate?
Where you know where baby picking animal comes from.
The baby goat.
The baby goats.
Right, sure.
Yeah. And then that's about as far as we get. And
well, you lose interest. Let's be serious.
He says he doesn't, you know, he would rather not talk about it.
Your son does.
My son does, yeah. And so this has been, and so now at school, they load up the thing at school.
Yeah.
So he has
tee it up.
Yeah, they have a 2-day program all day.
Yes.
You know, in the morning, break for lunch, come back.
Behavioral science.
Two days where it's all about reproduction and sex, and it happened last week.
How'd it go? What was the mood in
here's
the
how
house?
it went. First of all, I'm thinking, I'm like you. I'm relieved and disappointed because I thought, oh, I should have done this for my kids. So this weekend I said, Harry, I understand you had the 2 days instruction about sex and reproduction, and he says, no, we didn't.
He didn't say it like that.
And I said, no, wait a minute. I thought you said, it's next week.
Well.
So he's completely, you know, according to him, it didn't happen at all.
Well, I think that bodes well for your son.
In what sense?
Because I think maybe he's left in a sort of neutral state where he's not.
Where we
maybe
want our
he's
kids
not.
to be, really?
Just for the time being, for this small window.
Small window. Yeah.
It remains this other thing, this sort of otherworldly thing, and yet he's not going to be kept from the information. But this week, he's still an innocent.
I think so.
Sort of.
Yeah.
You know.
You know what I'm going to do
around,
tonight? I'm going to drop that seed story on him.
Yes. Just tell him, check on which Mary he picks.
Yeah. Oh, God bless you. God bless you.
Is this it?
This is it, my dear.
Oh, God, no.
10 years since Sex and the City went off the air. How about that? 10 years.
Yeah.
It's been 10 years, for the love of God. Ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only Sarah Jessica Parker. We'll be right back with Jordan Spieth.